Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Velvet Lounge Life. We added the word life to our title. So when you're looking for us, please look for us under the Velvet Lounge Life. And here is our card. I'll stand that back up. So I am dedicating this video to 80 Sunshine. So thank you, 80 Sunshine, for your many questions, your support. I am also dedicating this video to all of our other button lovers and people who are subscribers to our channel as well. You guys are awesome. I look at the engagement on the videos rarely, but for the button videos, I actually did look at that before I decided to take a bunch of information and condense it into this one video. And you guys are so awesome. You're very engaged and I really appreciate that. So in the background, I have some flashes from the past, which are some button videos that are running. But as I stated, I am going to dedicate this to 80 Sunshine, and the reason why is I want to answer her question. In several videos, I do mention where I have obtained buttons for my collection over the years. I did not put the information all in one video. So if you watch one of the button series, and of course, if you listen to the words carefully, then you will hear me mention like places that I've obtained some of my buttons. But I have other places where I have also obtained these buttons. And I even have like a new edition that I learned about just, I'm going to say like maybe a couple weeks ago, that I'm going to try out myself. So I am going to give you a list of at least 9 places where you can obtain buttons for free or for very little money. And I will also give you some tips on how to negotiate and how to purchase the buttons so that you are not overpaying because you became too excited and a seller figured that out and now they want to charge you an arm and a leg, and I don't want you to overpay. So not only will I tell you where you can find them, but yes, bonus material will be the negotiation process, which is really pretty simple. So let's start out by talking about this bin of buttons that I have here. This bin weighs about 10 pounds. It is pretty full, and I actually took maybe about 2 or 3 pounds of buttons out of it. And every button in this bin I was recently given for free. I paid nothing for it. There are buttons in here that, for example, these 2 cards of buttons, which are from Italy. It is very hard to find Italian buttons. These are worth probably about, I would say, $15, maybe even $20 for both of them. They're complete, the cards, nothing's missing. Originally, when these were sold, I would say these probably were sold in like the 1950s, maybe the 1960s. They were 26 cents for each card. And so out of this, free bin of buttons, that was an exciting find. And there's many more in here. There's mother of pearl, there's glass, there's buttons that are colors. Of course, there's a lot of natural colors. There's a lot of whites. The Pearline, which is like a fake pearl thing that they did. There's like several of these. These are from the 1960s, actually. There's several of those in there. So, I mean, it's just a lot of everything. There's just a lot of, and I really appreciate it. The person knows about my love and collection of most things button. So it was nice that they thought of me and they actually gave me all these buttons. But what if you don't know people who will give you buttons? How do you get people to give you buttons? How do you get free buttons? You know, that's huge. I think that the majority of your buttons should be free. However, obviously, there are plenty of people who are selling buttons and you can buy from them. The only thing is, once again, which I kind of mentioned in the beginning, if you don't know how to negotiate, you will overpay, or you will think you're getting one thing and end up with something that might be disappointing. So I am going to read 80 Sunshine's question while you take a moment to give a thumbs up to this video. Please give this video a thumbs up right now. To do that, all you do is go underneath the title of the video and you will see a thumb and it says like. Click like and you're all set. That's it. It's that quick. So please do that for us. We greatly appreciate it. So 80 Sunshine's question is, cannot find video with information on places to find amazing buttons for low cost or free. Please send me the link to your video so I can watch it and I can get this information. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to give her question a thumbs up because I appreciate the fact that she asked a question. And give everyone else in here a thumbs up because I just noticed I owe all you guys a thumbs up in this video. So like I stated in my other videos, I do mention in passing, you know, where I've obtained some of my buttons. This video, as I've stated already, will be dedicated to the 9 places or resources you can use yourself today, tomorrow, to also get buttons. Now, I can't guarantee that anything will actually happen for you because part of it depends upon your personality. Also, you know, are you a selfish person? Like when people ask you for things, do you ever give them anything? Also, are you willing to trade? Are you willing to pay? You know, for some people that makes a difference as well. You know, are you part of a group? If you're part of a group, pretty easy for you to get buttons. And I mean, the group could be any group. It could be a sewing group. It could be a church group. It could be Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts that you're volunteering with. You know, even people that you work with might give you buttons if they know that you have an interest in them. So that's my first resource for you. That's actually bonus material right there because I still have 9 more for you. Is be creative. Think about yourself. Like, what are you involved in where you might be able to obtain some free buttons? You don't have to be part of, you know, necessarily the Button Society of America. But, you know, if you, once again, are working with, let's say you're a troop leader for a Girl Scout group, then, you know, asking the mothers of those groups if they have any buttons, you know, for your own personal use, you need to be clear about what you're using them for, is a way for you to obtain the buttons and not pay anything in most cases. I'm also, while I go through this, I'll read some comments. I don't know if there'll be any questions in here, but some comments that people had about the videos so that, you know, we can keep it interesting and super light. So let's go on with our list. So I gave you a bonus item. Now I'm going to give you the 9 that I have on my list. Okay, resource number 1, relatives, friends, neighbors. I mean, these are people you have direct relationships with. Don't ask your neighbor, Mr. Brown, across the street who you never say hi to or you've never shared a cup of coffee with. But if you're always going to Barbara's house and you're hanging out and you guys are kind of friend neighbors, that's a perfect resource to ask for buttons. Also, obviously, your blood relatives, you know who sews in your family or who does the mending of the clothes. Yes, people still mend clothing. Those are people that you would want to ask, about buttons. The other one that I have is flea markets. Now, I do have a caveat with that. And the caveat is sometimes at the flea markets, if you buy anything in bulk, it's usually not super clean. So if you need to clean the buttons before you use them for whatever your uses are, then this is what I suggest. I suggest that you go through the buttons, take out the delicate buttons, take out buttons that should not be immersed into water, such as cloth buttons, celluloid buttons, wooden buttons. There's a whole list of them that should not be, put into water. And put those to the side. Those you will have to, use special handling with to clean them. And most of those you can probably clean just with a little bit of soapy water or just a little bit of water. But the others, like what I have in the bin right here, because I've taken out the delicate buttons, the cloth buttons, etc., I was able to use a quarter of a cup of Dawn dishwashing liquid and 1 cup of glass cleaner. And I used one that had no ammonia in it. And then I filled the tub up with warm water, and I put on gloves, and I just really swished, as you can see me in the shadow here, I really swished the buttons around pretty good. And my God, they were grimy. They were grimy as crap. So I actually poured that water off and started the process again. This time I just added, I did not rinse them. I just simply poured the water off. And then when I fill this again with warm water, I put warm water in it and another cup of window cleaner, swish the buttons around, and I let them sit for over 24 hours. When I went back to them, I could literally, there's such a difference. These buttons feel clean. They smell good, without overly smelling like anything. There's even mother of pearl buttons in here, and they still look really awesome. Actually, because here you go. There you go. So they still look really good. And, now I'll have fun sorting these over the next few days. Maybe I'll do a video where I sort through them. But then there are some buttons that were so grimy that regardless of how much they were cleaned, they're still grimy. So this is like a throw. This button will be thrown away. Actually, I'll throw it away right now because it's no good. So when, people give you buttons, you can't be particular. You have to just take them, clean them yourself, don't have any negative comments, and be happy. You just received something totally free that this person probably collected over years. So my next tip is tag sales. So if you go to a tag sale, what you want to do is just look around first. Look at everything just to double check to make sure they do not, or maybe they do, have buttons. If they don't have any and you feel comfortable enough, then ask the person if they have any buttons they're willing to sell. Most people will run into the house and bring you out a jar of buttons and sell it to you for a couple of dollars. But if you're like, I collect buttons, I'm looking for Chanel buttons or Yves Saint Laurent's buttons, I'm looking for antique, vintage, Victorian. Once you start using words that add expense and value, then suddenly that jar of buttons is no longer $1 or $2. They now want to charge you $10. So just, be plain. Do not use too many words. Just be to the point. so that, you don't overpay, because when you buy that jar of buttons, you are not going to open the jar. You are not going to sort through the buttons. You're simply going to pay them the $1 or $2, walk away, go home, and hope that you have something super cool and special in that jar. That is what I do. That's what I've done over the years, and it has worked out perfectly. And I never overpay, because a lot of the buttons that you come into contact with the majority of them actually will be everyday, low value, maybe even no value buttons that are good for crafts, but they're not good for, just displaying as part of a cool collection or using necessarily on your charm strings. Another place, clearance sales. So there was a sewing store that went out of business. I want to say it was like 10 years ago. And my husband and I happened to be in the town where this store was going out of business. It was a little teeny tiny one-horse town, similar to the town that, our town has a lot of horses, but similar to the town that I live in, where there are no major retailers anywhere, and there never have been. So the mom and pop shops are what, where people would go to buy gifts, or if they needed crafting items, or whatever it was. And so that was awesome. The sad thing is, they went out of business. But what I did is I purchased, I'm going to say maybe 600 to 700 buttons. Super cool buttons. This place was in their family for over 50 years. So they had old stock that I also purchased. And in doing that, wow, I hate when this thing says like good morning. It's like, I never even asked it to do that. But anyway, when I purchased the buttons, I, bought them. I think everything in the store at that point was like 75% off. And so I purchased them for very, very little money. I don't even know if I paid like $30, $40 for them. And it ended up being a really good resource as far as a place, where you can actually buy a lot of buttons for a little bit of money. And one of the ways that I did it is I basically, the lady's like, well, and she actually brought out an entire box. And she's like, I have all these if you want to go through them. What I did is I said, well, and I, I kind of went through, touched a couple on the top. I didn't dig and go crazy and pull stuff out and throw it all over tables. And then I was like, can I ask you a question? And she's like, sure. And there were not very many people in the store. And I was like, what would you take if I purchased the entire box? And she's like, wow, like all of them? And she was looking at them, and some of the buttons were so old that a card of buttons was like 26 cents. And there were some cards of buttons where they were 29 cents. And there were some where they were literally like 7 cents. And she's like, I don't know. What if, and I think she started at $50. And like I said, I think I ended up paying about $30. So I ended up with technically hundreds and hundreds of dollars in buttons for very little money. Super cool buttons. Yes, the majority of them were sold. I think I maybe added 20 of them to my collection. And even now I've whittled down my collection some. So probably out of the buttons I purchased that day, I may only have like 10 of them. And all the rest over the years have been sold, or I still have them for future projects. And I know I added some to charm strings, that type of thing. So if a store, especially a mom and pop arts and craft type store exists in your town, hopefully they're not going out of business, but you can ask them if they have old stock they might actually sell it to you in bulk for very little money. Another place is there are trade groups and other collectors out there of buttons. You can actually trade with each other, and that would cost you nothing. The only thing is, obviously, like if you know that you are looking for mirror back buttons, a mirror back is a pretty cool button. So you might have to give up, you know, to get that one button, you might have to give up 2 or 3 of your buttons. It will not be a 1-for-1 trade because that might not be fair. For example, if you have Bakelite buttons, Bakelite has just taken a nosedive to the bottom as far as value goes. So Bakelite is only like still fetching really good money if the color is super incredibly rare, like purple, for example, or orange, like a bright orange. You know, if you have something like that, or pink is really hard to find. But if you have, you know, yellows, browns, greens, reds, you know, those are very common colors. Even the butterscotch yellows are not fetching the money that they used to. You just need to know that your trade may not be a 1-for-1 trade. Depends upon what you're looking for, and it depends upon what the person you're trading with is also looking for. Also, another resource is estate sales. The estate sales I like to go to are what I call disorganized estate sales. Why? You can get the best deals. Everything hasn't been gone through with a fine-tooth comb. Usually items are not priced. So those are the types of estate sales you want to go to. If you go to a properly set up estate sale, walk in, take a look, walk out. Why? Because the prices will not be good. Unless it's like if they're doing a multi-day estate sale and it's the very last day and they're like everything's 50% off. Still, you might not end up with a good deal, but that would be the best deal day to go on. But if you go to what I call a disorganized tag sale or estate sale, then if you find sewing items, you know, usually the person has a supply of buttons, not always, sometimes, and you can actually make a deal. For example, this bin of buttons that I have here, if I saw this at an estate sale, I would offer to pay like $8 to $10, and the person probably would get me up to, I would say, between $12 and $15, and I would probably try to get them down to about 12 to 13, and then I would buy them and be very happy. At the estate sale, I would not go through this. I would just do a quick look at what's on top, move the stuff around just a little bit, and then, you know, make a deal on, you know, trying to get a discount on this bin. The other place is, which is one of my favorite places. It's one of my favorite places because it's a place where I have gotten the best buttons besides getting them for free. That is getting them off of old clothing, old coats, old suits. Those are my favorite places to get them. You know, if you find a gown that might have fancy rhinestone buttons on it, you want to go for that. Usually the clothes, you know, they're selling the item for the clothes, and usually they're only selling the clothes for like a couple dollars, maybe even less, or maybe even by the pound or something. And what you want to do is simply, like, if they want, you know, $3 for a suit, but you see there's buttons on there you want, offer them $2 for the suit. They'll probably take it home, recover those buttons, donate the suit to the Salvation Army or Goodwill. That's the one time I do approve donating to the Salvation Army or Goodwill, because they take the clothes that are like that and they sell them as rags by the pound to countries overseas, from China to Africa to just all sorts of countries that are overseas, because those people there are way better than we are as Americans when it comes to recycling, reducing, and reusing. And they do some amazing things with those clothing scraps. So you don't need to feel bad about taking the buttons off, and please do not throw the suit or whatever away, because now I just told you how to donate it. And not only is donating a good thing, the donation center will give you a card or piece of paper where you can note what you donated and use that to subtract off of your taxes. It's a tax deduction. So you just made money, and you also got buttons that you wanted. So it's a pretty good trade-off. Now, the buttons that I usually get off of suits and coats are usually especially coats, are usually very large buttons. As you know, nowadays, most coats don't have buttons. A lot of them have zippers. But the old coats that we wore as kids, or that our grandparents had, or even beyond that, those buttons are pretty amazing, and you really want to take a look at those. The other place is groups that are on Facebook, Etsy, Pinterest, etc. There are people on there that actually have button groups, and in those groups they sell buttons, sometimes for very little money. Many times, of course, they know exactly what they have, so you're not going to get the best deal. And also you will not necessarily buy in quantity, because in those groups, they usually have pulled out the Italian buttons, and they know that they can sell this card of buttons for, I would say, between $8 and maybe $12. Especially if it's intact like this, they may even be able to sell it for a little bit more, adding in shipping and handling. So, you're just not going to get that bulk deal. But it is a good place if you're looking for particular buttons to add to your collection or for a special project. So I'm going to read quickly a comment that we received here. That was another one. Thank you, family plan number 2. And everyone that watches our videos, and everyone that gives us a thumbs up and takes that 2 seconds to leave a comment. To give us a thumbs up, all you have to do is look under the title and click like. That's it. It's literally 2 seconds. Please do that for us. We'd really appreciate it. Obviously, sharing our videos, if you saw that, the share button is right here, and you can even copy the link. And in copying the link, which is right here, you just press copy. What it'll allow you to do is when you're in your Facebook groups and such, you can share our videos. You can even share them on Etsy, Pinterest, etc. We would really appreciate that. It gives us the energy to go on and make more content like this for you. So family plan number 2 said, I found these videos to be very interesting and informative. Thanks for sharing. I have come into a huge amount of buttons, several thousands, from a sewing guild, which is one of my resources. Look for sewing guilds. From the 19th, and she's saying that I guess there's some from the 1930s. Many are very interesting buttons. So I am learning about the values and how rare some are. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. So that was really sweet. And then I have Amaretta 598 who said, thanks. I have a red Bakelite lucite buttons just like your green ones. Didn't know what I had. So we actually get that comment quite a bit. People who have held on to buttons didn't know what they had, and now because of our videos, they're able to identify exactly what they are, and they're also in some cases able to know what has value and what does not have value. So thank you so much. Once again, please share, please comment. Please give us that quick thumbs up. Look, we have 15 thumbs up on this video. Much appreciated. We don't know who these haters are that gave us 2 thumbs down, but hey, we appreciate them too. So another place where you can find buttons, as I mentioned, and I actually mentioned it from a comment, is a sewing guild. Now, the reason I'm going to talk about the guild just for a moment is because not only can you find them if you're part of a sewing guild, but also if you're part of a crochet group, or like I think I mentioned in this video, a Boy Scout, Girl Scout groups, church groups. There's a lot of different groups out there. If you go to any of tag sales, like for example, charity tag sales, having a business card or even just leaving your name and number with a variety of people there, letting them know that you're looking for sewing buttons. Some of them will actually get back to you. That actually happened to me several times one year, to the point that I had way too many buttons. But I still, when I called them, we met at the police station. They gave me their buttons for nothing. And then there were a couple people where they wanted just like, you know, I think it was like, I remember one person was like, you know, if you just give me enough for a cup of coffee, I actually gave them $5. And someone else, I think I paid about 10. So you can tell what I'm talking about is either the prices will be very, very, very low, or the items will be completely free. These folks will just appreciate the fact that someone appreciates the buttons that have been in their family potentially for decades and several generations. So thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, please like, subscribe, share. We appreciate it. Please leave your questions in the comments below. As you can see and as you know, I do get back to you. Also, I have a video that will be coming out over the next week or so regarding military uniform and specialized buttons.